Seeing no other questions, anyone wish to speak against? I see Senator Tucker, you're recognized to speak against.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just looking around to see if Senator Hammer's friends are still here. I don't love coming down here. Can I just start with that? I don't love coming down here, especially against someone who I respect and admire as much as I do, Senator Hammer. Now, if Senator Flippo were running a bill, I might walk down here with a little bounce in my step. But not Senator Hammer. And, you know, a lot of times I come down, I do have a job to do, and I appreciate sincerely y'all listening when I do come down here. And sometimes when I come down, I have philosophical issues I want to raise, and sometimes it's particular things with language. For the most part today, I'm going to keep it at a pretty high level, philosophical level. I really appreciated something Senator Payton said last week, that he wants to see the context that laws and Bible verses are in. That's why he goes to the chapter and verse and goes back to look. And I started when thinking about these bills with as big picture as you can possibly get, and that's with the Constitution of the state of Arkansas. This is the document that creates our state. Article 1, it establishes literally the boundaries of the state of Arkansas. Article 2, it enumerates our individual liberties, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, right to bear arms. Article 3 is a right to vote. Article 4 establishes our branches of government. Mr. Tree reminded me recently that in the Constitution we don't actually call them branches, we call them departments. Those are the first 4 articles. Article 5 is the legislative department. It comes first. Article 6 is the executive department. Article 8 is the judicial. Legislative department comes first in our 3 branches of government, Article 5. So now I'm focusing in on Article 5. The Senate, the body we all love and serve in, that comes in Section 3. Section 3 of the legislative department. What's Section 2? Well, that's where the House of Representatives is established. Well, what comes before the House and the Senate? And that is the other group of lawmakers we have in Arkansas. And that is the people. That's the people. And it says very clearly in Article 5, Section 1, the people reserve to themselves the power to propose legislative measures. The first power reserved by the people is the initiative. The second power reserved by the people is the referendum. Now, when you have 2 groups of lawmakers, there's an inherent conflict between the 2. The 2 groups, again, are the legislators and the people. Because if one group has all the power, then the other has none. And when the people enacted Article 5, Section 1, they foresaw this. They knew about this conflict. And they put extra provisions in this article to address that. If you're the governor, now it didn't have anything to do with the current governor, this was passed in 1920. If you're the governor and the people pass a law, sorry, governor, you can't veto it. If you're the legislature and the people pass a law, you can't amend it with a simple majority. It takes 2/3. And then there's a special provision in the Constitution, and it's titled Unwarranted Restrictions Prohibited. And this is directed right at us. And it says, no law shall be passed. That's us. No law shall be passed to prohibit any person or persons from giving or receiving compensation for circulating petitions, nor to prohibit the circulation of petitions. This language is important. Nor in any manner interfering with the freedom of the people in procuring petitions. We can't pass any laws that do that. And so what have we done? Every legislative session since 2013, we have passed laws to make the petition process more difficult. Every single session since 2013. I think one of the reasons that we've done that is because the legislature, I'm talking big picture here, conflates 2 ideas, mixes 2 things up. And that is that there are 2 parts of this process. One is the signature gathering part, where we decide if something's going to be on the ballot, and the other is where the people ultimately vote on it. When you sign a petition to put something on the ballot, you are not voting for that to become law. You are not voting for that to become law. You are saying, I believe this is a decision that should be made by the people. Those are not the same things. I wasn't going to address this, but Senator Hammer mentioned the outside influence in the petition process. And I just want to address that because it's related to this idea of conflating the petition signature process and the election. Only Arkansans can sign petitions. Only Arkansans can vote on election day on ballot measures, and that's the way it ought to be. Those are the rules for that group of lawmakers. What about the rules for us? We're imposing a lot of rules on the people that we don't impose on us. How many of y'all have worked with someone from outside Arkansas on a bill? Should we not be allowed to do that? Should every registered lobbyist be an Arkansas citizen? Otherwise, we're allowing out-of-state influence on the laws that we pass on this group of lawmakers. What if we had to gather signatures before we filed a bill? What if we had to check people's driver's licenses before they signed before we could file a bill? We're putting a lot of restrictions on one group of lawmakers without taking a look at ourselves. Now, Senator Hammer has talked about integrity of the election process. Senator Dees, you talked about accuracy. These are valid, legitimate goals, right? I hesitate to use analogies when I come down here, but I'm going to do it. You know what else is a valid, legitimate goal? Making sure that Arkansans are not injured or killed in car accidents. That's a valid goal. And I know what we could do to make sure that doesn't happen. We could put a four-way stop sign at every intersection in Arkansas. If we do that and people obey the law, we'll have 0 car crashes, 0 injuries, 0 deaths. But there's a reason we don't. It's because it would make the process way too difficult. So here we have a situation where we know people will die, literally, because of our decision not to put four-way stop signs at every intersection. But we make that decision as a society because we also decide there's something else on the other side of that. People have to be able to get around. So what's on the other side of this? Again, we have those legitimate concerns. What's on the other side of this? Something that's very important, and that is the people of Arkansas to get ballot measures on the ballot. And we're worried about one harm, which is that maybe there's an invalid signature, but we are guaranteeing the other harm, which is that the people can't get ballot measures on the ballot. And at the end of the day, what are we really worried about? What is the evil we're fighting against? Again, not on the vote, on the petition process. The ultimate evil, the ultimate concern is that maybe something gets on the ballot with only 88,000 signatures instead of 90,000 signatures for a constitutional amendment, or 68,000 signatures instead of 70 for an initiated act. At the end of the day, the people are the ultimate backstop when they vote on election day in November, which is a separate part of the process. 2 more points before I sit down. One is, I think we use too many emergency clauses down here. Emergency clauses affect, do you know where they're addressed in the state constitution? Right here in Article 5, Section 1. And the reason that this is where they are is because they inhibit the people's ability to put a referendum on a bill that we pass. And so when we are passing a bill that will inhibit inherently the people's ability to put something on the ballot, and then we're putting an emergency clause on there that inhibits their ability to put a referendum on this, we need to be very careful about that. And all 5 of these bills have emergency clauses. I think there's a separate reason, even if you like the bill, to vote against the emergency clause for that reason. The last thing is, do the people support these restrictions on the ballot measure process? I can tell you, I've been down here a minute, and I don't want to have recency bias, but I think this is a bill I've heard more on than any bill in my legislative career. Maybe when I was in the House, there was a gun bill that came through in 2017. But I think it's number 1 in the Senate. And I've gotten exactly one message in support of these bills. It was a message I gave it to Senator Hammer. Everything else has been opposed. Now, I understand that's not exactly a representative sample, but I know what is a representative sample. I didn't mention in the list of bills that we passed since 2013, we also sent out a referred constitutional measure in the last couple cycles, not in 24, but in 20 and 22. In 20, 55% of the people voted against it. In 22, 60% of the people voted against it. You can't have 60% of Arkansans vote against something, just to put things in stark political terms, without a whole lot of Republicans voting against it. I don't believe the people support these measures that restrict the ability of getting something on the ballot. Now, all the harms that have been cited in committee and on the floor, people signing twice, already against the law. People being misled into what they're citing, already against the law. Every single harm that's already been cited, is already against the law. If there's a problem we have, it's with enforcement of the current law, not with lack of laws on the books. But every single time we pass one of these laws, when you look at them cumulatively, it really puts a major chokehold on the people's ability to get things on the ballot. And I mentioned this 2 years ago on a bill that Senator Dotson ran, but the reason I know that people don't like these bills cumulatively is because we are a populist state. And that is why our state motto is regnant populus. The people rule. And if we keep passing these bills, we need to change our motto to regnant imperium. The government rules. Because if the people, the first branch of lawmakers that we have under the Arkansas Constitution, can't make their own laws, then the government does rule. So I'll be voting no on this bill and any other bill that comes through this chamber that restricts the people's ability to get something on the ballot.